Okay, we are live.
Hey, fantastic. Hello, hello.
Alive. We
You've
are
been
live.
waiting. You want to hear about this situation and how
I
it's
want to
unfolding.
record, Mama Swan.
Thank you for the reminder. Yes, we shall do that.
We're ready.
Everybody, hello. Recording in progress. There you go. Welcome to the Black Swan universe and our Tuesday night live show. Yes, where we teach you ladies how to present as a high value, high status, and high worth woman that high quality men find completely irresistible. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Okie dokie. So I am joined tonight by the usual suspect. Yes, my partners in crime, our head coach Unique and our senior coach Yvonne, who are going to be out here in these dating and relationship streets, giving you the real on how things should be. Okay. Yeah. So I'm really excited about today's topic. Coach Yvonne was like, why do we have to talk about what everybody's talking about? And I said, so because we are the authority in this space and we are the Black Swans and the world must hear what we have to say because it's going to be wise and it's going to be great. So I'm excited.
Offer new perspective.
Open new perspective, fresh perspective. Absolutely. I have always avoided talking about current issues. I've always felt above it. However, I realize now that as our authority grows in the space, that of course, our Black Swans would love to know, especially when something goes viral, what the Constitution says about this situation. Okay, so today we're going to be exploring different dimensions of the story. And I'm going to start off by asking, well, we're going to go for bullseye, really. And I'm going to ask each of the coaches the question that this young lady was asked. Now, forgive me for not remembering the words, but I know the names, but I know Inyala was part of it. Do you know what the lady's name was? Unique? Yvonne?
I don't remember, but I do remember is it Anyala? I can never say her name.
Okay, so you don't remember the other lady. That's because we're Brits and we're snobby and we don't feel we need to really know everybody's name. I think it's Ebony K. It's Ebony K. Williams, Ebony K. Williams. I suspect she's an American personality. Please forgive us to our American viewers. We really are. I live in a cave. I've owned this 1,001 times. I never know who's who or what is what. I kind of like it because when I deal with important people, I don't know who they are, so I treat them like everybody else. Okay, so today we want to discuss the conversation that Inyala had with Ebony K. Williams. For those of you who have not watched, I'll give you a synopsis. Basically, the young lady was asking Inyala, how can we be in our divine feminine if the men who, I'm paraphrasing, if the men are not really able to occupy their divine masculine by being adequate and competent providers. In which case, Inyala responded by asking her if she would date a bus driver. Of course, she said, some people are saying she said yes with conditions. I genuinely believe she said no. She said yes if he owned the bus. Basically, that was no, she wants an entrepreneur. But we shall discuss that a little bit further as we go along. Now, obviously, she was vilified for, God forbid, you have a preference.
How dare you? How dare you?
That you might have a preference. But nevertheless, it's a conversation worth having. She felt that if he was of a higher status, she would entertain his advances, to which our queen Nyala says, well, that's the problem right there. If he actually loves his job and is a good man and is faithful and is true and has got integrity, that should be a valid option. Again, I feel Inyala had a very good point. I believe that the young lady, Ebony K, has every right to want what she wants and need what she needs. And that's me quoting our coach Unique. It's okay to want what you want, to need what you need. And I also believe that Inyala had a point. And so I'm just going to start this off by saying, Coach Unique, I think we'll let you go first.
Would
you personally, I haven't finished, I haven't asked the question. Would you personally date a bus driver?
I
was not expecting that.
Do I have to answer it?
Yeah. And okay, let's broaden it.
I don't mind.
Okay, let's go.
I don't mind answering it. But I'll start off with being corrected. The pronunciation apparent is ebony, as in ebony. Ebony Clyde. And then it's Iyanla.
Iyanla. Ebony and Iyanla.
Yes. And someone I should put down it's pronounced ebony, as in ebony. Ebony. So it's just the spelling, right? That's the word.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Ebony. Okay.
Someone's just put notes in the comments.
Thank you so much.
Ebony and Young Love.
Please forgive us, Ebony. I doubt you will ever see this, but do forgive us.
And then this is the one video she sees, which is like
that ridiculous woman from Black Swan calling ebony. I mean, honestly. So apologies.
Okay. So let me behave. Ask me the question again and I'll answer you.
Would you date a bus driver, aka a blue collar guy? Because I think that's probably where Iyanla was going.
Okay. In this very moment, like where I am right now, it's a no.
Can you say that clearly for the camera? You kind of swallowed that last.
I think you may need to ask the question again so that she can give a qualified answer.
Okay, so our head coach Unique says at this moment, at this point in her life, she would say no. Would you like to give us a reason why you would say no?
Because I live in London and I know what bus drivers are like. If based on that, again, we have to put context into the situation, right? And I would actually ask what kind of bus is he driving? I kind of know the shift patterns. I actually did date a bus driver once. And unfortunately, it didn't go anywhere because he felt some kind of way at the time. I'm an entrepreneur. So he felt some kind of way. So from experience, my answer would be no.
Lovely. Yeah. We know that Coach Yvonne is a married woman. However, Coach Yvonne, if you were not married, would you date a bus driver?
Okay. Here's the thing. Whilst I am married now, there was a long period of my life when I wasn't.
Indeed.
And back in the day, before Black Swan was even a twinkle in your eye, before there was ever such a thing as dating advice, let's put it this way, we're back in the Stone Age, where you actually met people in a party. So I'm talking way back. And I'd not long been married, and I actually dated a bus driver, and I dated him. I think it might have been for about 3 months. Now, my husband was my first boyfriend, and then this gentleman, and I thought the sun, moon, and the stars and everything had landed. Everything was rightly aligned and landed in my lap. And little did I realize I was on a rota. So I understand what Coach Unique says when she says that I know what they're like, because she had the route that went through London. So I suppose everyone that caught his eye decided that, you know what, I'm young and fit, so are they. So, you know, any port in a storm, and I happen to be one of the ports, so needless to say, it didn't last for very long. So because of that experience, mine is I think I would have to say, dependent on the person. So it wouldn't be a blanket yes. It really would be dependent on the person, because whilst I had one bad experience, and so did Unique, Coach Unique, let's face it, there are tens of thousands of bus drivers in London alone. And if we're saying from the two experiences that we had, all of them are players, all of them are no good, all of them are whatever words we want to call them, then we would be doing them a disservice. So I think it would have to be dependent on the person, what his goals are, and the training and the coaching and all that we've gone through to be Black Swans. When you're doing your core needs and you're speaking to him, all of that would be made clear within the second conversation. You would know the type of man that you're getting. So unlike Coach Unique for where she is now, I would give them the opportunity of at least one conversation before saying a blanket no.
Right. Interesting that both of you have said no, but not for the reasons that I believe Ebony said no to. I believe that, and I could be wrong, so it's just me interpreting the conversation. I believe that Ebony was saying no based on the financials, the potential financial situation. She's obviously talking from a successful, well-earning woman, and I believe Iyanla was asking really about status, because when we're talking about bus driver, we're really talking about blue collar men, and versus a woman who's probably an entrepreneur, earns really well, dating a blue collar man. So it doesn't have to be a bus driver in terms of the guy behind the bus. And so I believe that really she was asking this young lady about the status of the man that she would marry and the financial competency of the man that she was marrying. And so I'm going to ask you the question again, but obviously with that in mind, because I know you're pure-hearted Black Swans who would never deny a man. But really, honestly, would you date a man, I think, let's rephrase this, who had less than you, made less than you, and did not come with the status that you have? So he was lower status and he was lower in terms of finances. Would you date a man like that?
Yeah, and again, my answer would still be no.
Okay. Would you like to give a reason why no on that?
I think it's really more, for me, it's more about the dynamics. I am a 43-year-old woman living in the center of London. There's certain lifestyle, there's certain something that I'm accustomed to, there's certain something that I want in my partner, the things that I'm looking for, that unfortunately a man that I would be dating, he would most probably be 45, 50. And at this stage, if he is still doing blue collar work, will not work for the lifestyle that we want to build. And I have to be realistic in that, because those are things that I'm building for myself that I want. And when setting up the dynamics of a relationship, you do want someone that I want someone, it's be personal because it may not be everyone. I want someone I can aspire to, I can look up to. Financially, I can look up to. Intellectually, I can look up to. Physically, I want to look up to him if he's working out. And I just want to look up. I want a man I can admire and adore, because for me, that would mean I respect him. And that is what he will need from me, because he will need a woman that respects him. And it's not a vain thing to then look at where a man is in that state. Am I able to respect him in the place that he's at? If I'm already turning my nose up at his job, my ears are not really going to be listening to anything more. My ears are not really going to be listening to, yes, he may turn my mind around, but the initial presentation of what I see is going to be like, okay, I'm not going to be sure. So again, from experience, I would rather just not put myself in that position, which is, it's not a hard no, but with the circumstances, I would say no.
I love that. I think that we need to, and thank goodness we can do that on our own platform, because I really feel Ebony didn't feel she could be honest. I feel like we live in a world where being authentic gets punished. If you say clear, hard no, you're going to have to answer to somebody. And this is why we're so mentally broken down and we do all this people pleasing, because people say don't care about people pleasing. Truth is, we put pressure on people who don't agree or fold the way we should. So, fair dues to you, young lady, for being very clear about that. How about you, Coach Yvonne? What are your thoughts? Would you date a man of lower status and lower financial capability?
You know, I've been listening to what Coach Unique said, and I'm playing back some of the conversations that I had with you about this topic, and on a lot of the research that I've been doing since then in regards to this, and how the whole thing came about. And before I answer that question, I'm going to give you, Coach Unique, a scenario and tell me what would you do. Mm-hmm. You're on a beach in
Jamaica. Jamaica.
Santorini.
You're on a beach in the Bahamas, the Bahamas, the Seychelles.
It's me,
and on this beach in the Seychelles, you're staying in the most fabulous 5-star luxury resort. You're on your lounger, you look across, you see a young gentleman, he's smiling. Both of you are smiling, the chemistry's there. He likes you, you like him, you can see it. During the time of the holiday, you have the most wonderful time. Mm-hmm. You exchange numbers, you come back to London, you're still having great conversation. He takes you out on a date. And on your third date, it comes to, what do? He says, I'm a bus driver. What do you then do?
That's a very unfair question. You know that, right?
Because she would have asked him what he does.
Sorry?
I'm thinking Coach Unique would have asked him what he does from the first date.
Probably not, because let's face it, if you're seeing somebody sitting in your resort, that means he could afford to be there.
No, he could have got vouchers.
Regardless of how he paid for it, he's still there.
Okay,
go ahead, Coach Unique. What would you then do?
The thing is, knowing me, like Chengi said, I would have already asked that question anyway, somehow, somewhere. I would have asked him, what do you enjoy about your job from the very beginning? And it would have come out. But if he then said, look, I'd be, oh, that's very interesting. There wouldn't be anything to do. Because again, if he's already passed that vetting protocol, if he's already passed, and we're now talking about being exclusive, because remember here we're just dating, it wouldn't really matter what he does if we're just dating. So if I'm now considering, okay, if he wants to have a relationship, if on this third date, we're now talking about, okay, he wants to be exclusive, wants to have a relationship with me, I would then have to investigate further. Has he been showing up on these days as the man that I need him to show up as? Is he able to sign on not necessarily the physical dotted line, the proverbial dotted line, as in, does he meet my core needs? Does he meet my standards? Does he meet a man that I can respect? That's a different story. And again, when you set up the scenario on a holiday, it's a totally different scene to your reality, because reality might play out that I actually don't like you that much. Reality might play out to be something different. Mm-hmm. So again, it's not about what will I do, it's what conversations am I ready to then have, I guess, after that. Okay. What conversations am I ready to break down and ask him, okay, so, I have a daughter. Are you in a place where, because obviously if we were in a relationship walking towards marriage, we would have those conversations over time. Are you in a position to have a daughter, me and my daughter? Are you in a position to be that role model that my daughter needs? Are you in a position to be the man I can respect? Because look, like I said, the bus driver that I met, he was still studying. And the reason I didn't date him was because I knew he's doing this he's not settled in where he was. He was still living with his auntie. He had just moved from up north. He had just come to London. London is rough when you're first starting off. And I knew he wouldn't be ready to be even considered as a boyfriend for the next 2, 3 or so years. And he thought it was because he was just a bus driver, but it's not even about that. It's about more about his ambition, where he is in his life. So he could be a bus driver. He could just have retired recently and decided, you know what, I'd love to take on a new career. Let me just see what bus driving is like. He could be in that position where he's just doing it for fun because it's something he's always wanted to do and never did. And he's got the time to do it. So again, it's never really just about, okay, he's a bus driver. No, it's never a hard no. It's never a hard yes. So yes, My answer would still be no.
Okay, that was a very long-winded no.
Conversation. What did you say?
So that was a long way to go about no, but a good one, a good one. Why were you asking Coach Yvonne? What were you trying to get to?
No, where I was trying to get to with this is, I'm always going to bring it back to the word. And the word says, we humans look at the face and not at the heart. And it is the heart of the person that matters, because, okay, today he's a bus driver. And yeah, you're an entrepreneur, you're a girl about town, and you're really a mover and shaker, and you're doing all the most wonderful thing. But here's the thing. He started his job when he was, let's say, 18. And whilst he was doing that, he invested his money. He's got 7 properties around London, but he likes the interaction that he's doing with, people. He doesn't need to work, as you said earlier in your eloquent answer, but he likes being out and about. He doesn't want to stay. He's got the money to do it. And even in your questioning, when you're doing so, it's and you're asking him, and he says, oh, I'm a bus driver. And automatically when you say that, and if your body language would give you away, because there are some things that we can't hide. And if you meet him in whatever the resort is, you met him there, and everyone's having a great time, and then you come down to asking him, okay, what do you do? I'm a bus driver, and he doesn't get the opportunity to go any further, not because you cut him, but everything about you changed. You were crestfallen.
Yes.
In the way in which you came across, when you said it, because we don't see the expression that we've got on our face. We think that we are still smiling. We think that, our eyes are still sparkling or what have you, but there's something in our energy that tells him, I've lost her. So this is why I said at the beginning, and it would still be my answer, it would depend on the person and where he's going. If all it is that he's ever wanted to do was to be a bus driver, and he is, we both, myself and Mama Swan, we know a gentleman who started out as a bus driver when he left school or college, and he's now running the show. He's just worked his way up, and it's been his only job. And he runs, the bus station. I don't even know what the title is for that. And whilst he isn't a bus driver, he used to be one, but he had ambition, so for me, it depends on the person and what it is that they have in mind. What are they working towards? What are they bringing to the table? And you don't know that unless you have, a conversation. So unless, if it's going to be a blanket, no, you could miss out on the love of your life.
Yeah, that's true.
And to put it the other way, in looking at this, it's not to say that somebody who owns the bus company is going to be the most wonderful person there is. This person that we both know about is not the most wonderful person that there is, so it just goes to show that, rich people, I think the survey said 1 in 2, which is 49% of wealthy men, marriages end in divorce. So at least the alimony would be good. So
okay, what I'm hearing is 2 people agreeing, but coming from a different because you are ultimately, Coach Yvonne, saying, look, the actual status of what he does wouldn't put you off. You would be open to investigating further, but once you have made that investigation, you're still not dating a broke bus driver. You are going to be dating a bus driver that has made something of his career. And I believe that's what Iyanla was saying, is if he loves his job and is a good man and he's decent and he's got all of these other qualities, surely he's worthy. Now, obviously, let's look at it from an academic perspective. We have to understand that the feminine woman is naturally wired biologically, evolutionarily, to be hypergamous. Now, for those of you who don't know what hypergamy means, it means that the woman, for her survival, has always had to marry, mate, at the same level or higher. This is biological wiring cycle. It's deeply rooted in our psyche. It's a survival protocol. And so when we vilify a woman for being hypergamous, what we're really asking her to be is masculine. Now, we don't want to ignore the fact that we do live in a world where there are different types of women. I've done a video on this about feral hypergamy and, feminine hypergamy. And there's a video on this channel that you can all go and have a look. Feral hypergamy manifests as the gold digger. This is a woman who normally comes from poverty. The research has stated that a woman who was raised in poverty is going to naturally become feral in her desire for money. That's who we would call the gold digger, the woman who is malicious intent, has no other desire to be in a relationship except to siphon money off a man. That is, my definition of a gold digger. Whereas there is the feminine woman who is hypergamous. So whenever we ask women to date down, as in lower status and lower financial ability to provide, we're really asking them to be in their masculine and stay there. This is really very important when it comes to feminine and masculine dimensions. I also want to reference a research that was done by Harvard University in the 90s, and they surveyed everybody on the campus to find out, why do people mate and marry? 2/3 of women mate and marry for financial stability and status. These are the women that are mainly in the feminine energy. And 2/3 of men marry for sexual and sensual stability. So vilifying a woman for wanting, financial stability and status, that means a job title, a home background that elevates her, and stability and security, is almost like vilifying a man for wanting to have sexual stability. It's almost like saying, hey, why don't you marry a woman you're not attracted to and have sex with her for the rest of your life? Now, nobody would question that. Nobody would say, oh, that's awful. Men have to like the physicality of the woman they're marrying. But God forbid a woman wants security financially and status. It's something that we judge, and that's met with a lot of judgment, but that's because a lot of people are coming from ignorance. Now, I believe you posted something in the group today, Coach Unique, where Ebony was giving her feedback on the response that she got. And I do feel that there is a case for angry men. I also want to say this with as much sensitivity as possible. I really feel that this is this hypergamy, gold digger dynamic is really enhanced within the American community. It's really massive. They're not so much here. I genuinely believe that here women are less so. They're still hypergamous, but from the men that I have dated and spoken to, a woman in America is quite happy to ask a man directly, how much do you earn? Right from the get-go. Whereas here in the UK, it'd be considered rude and disrespectful and ill-mannered to ask a question that, how much do you make? It's just something that we would not think to ask, because it's so rude, right? So and so I believe that it's heavily in American culture, and in Europe not so much. I think we tend to be more conservative and really seek for more. So again, I say this to caveat that these are British minds looking into a culture and sort of with our sort of way of thinking, and difficult to empathize if you're not within that culture. I know there's so much more that we can discuss when it comes to dating down. You said something earlier, Coach Unique. You said he had a problem with your status, even when you did not have a problem with his status. Can you elaborate on that?
So at the time, again, entrepreneur, literally just started as a coach, actually. And I remember, was it lockdown or before lockdown? Can't remember. But the thing there, when we had the conversation, he already was insecure about him being a bus driver around me.
Right.
By looking at me, he's like, oh, you're the kind of woman that wants flowers. You're the kind of woman that I'd never said anything to him, never said anything. But because on just looking at me, he had already figured, okay, this is the kind of woman that needs this. So I think that insecurity kind of came from there, because he knew within himself he wouldn't be able to do that. So it then turned, I guess it was more like turning it around, where he then blamed, okay, well, you're too busy anyway building your career, so you wouldn't have time for me. Or you're too busy with your clients, so you wouldn't have time for me. Also, you're too busy building this and doing lives and doing Instagram, this and that, so you don't have time for me. So he made it more about, and that's what normally happens, right? When a man is not feeling like, you know what, this is a woman I can provide for, it's that whole talking down. It's that whole making you feel like your standards are too high. And I hadn't said anything. This was literally third date. And he's like, no, but you're the kind of woman who needs to be spoiled. But in my questioning is like, the truth is you cannot do that though. So let's just leave it as it is. I've got no hard feelings. It's just, and we just both know that this is just not going to work, because you're always going to feel some kind of way. You're always going to find my being an entrepreneur a thing, right? Because for him, he would be like, oh, I really, maybe you should just get a 9-to-5. I've never been a 9-to-5 girl. I don't even know what that looks like, even if, yes, sometimes I've done it, but it's still foreign to me. It's like, 9 to what? Like, I don't know about that life. It's just not in me. And I understand that about myself. And I'm saying, I'm not vilifying him. It's just, I understand who I am. And I think this is the important thing about women. When you're under, and I think this is what Ebony got flack for. She understands her status in life and her bracket, where she is. She's a newscast a presenter. She earns a certain lifestyle. She's accustomed to a certain way of living. Like, I don't need a man to buy me flowers. I can do it for myself. But at the same time, it'd be nice if he did. Mm-hmm. So what was the question again?
You were just elaborating on him. Yeah. Do you find, Coach Yvonne, from your clients, or maybe from some personal experience in your single days, that they were men that actually had a problem more with you being the high status one? Or was that never an issue?
I think back then, because I think the dating dynamics and the male-female expands, especially when it comes to money, are so changed from back then to how it is now. Right. Now, many homes, it's the women that are the breadwinners. It's in many places, and the way things have evolved here in the UK, women tend to be the higher, especially Black women tend to be the higher earners than men. So things have escalated and things have changed. And back when I'm talking about dating, I'm talking about late 80s, early 90s, that we're talking about, and the situation then was completely different. At the time, I wasn't an entrepreneur. I was managing an insurance office in Islington. So whilst I had a very good job, and as I spoke about the person, I didn't date him for long enough to know exactly income or anything at all like that, because it wasn't going anywhere. And if I'm not the only one, I certainly am not going to be one of many. And that really didn't work for me. So that relationship didn't, pan out. But I do think that when I was in the dating scene, things were a lot different. And it was a case of, I think as we have evolved as women and the world has opened so much to us and we can do so much more now, we can take care of ourselves. Back then, you left school, you got a job, you got married, you stayed at home, looked after your children, your husband was to provide for you, and that's how it was. I saw my mother do it. I saw my friends do it. My friends' parents also did the same thing. And it isn't as, as the years have gone by, then things have changed and women are now out there in the field with their careers and doing. And actually, I can do it for myself. I really don't need you, is I think how we come across, a lot of women come across here in the UK. So I'm hoping that answers your question.
Yes, it's interesting because you've just actually brought me to the next point that I wanted to make. We still need to answer Ebony's question, which was how do we actually stay in our feminine when the masculine men are in shortage, in short supply, is what she was really indicating, or at least the men who have masculine energy, however, fail to demonstrate it through the ability to provide at the level I've become accustomed to or better, are in short supply. So I really want you ladies to think about that while I make this point, as how would we genuinely answer that question, and how can women who are high earners in this modern day? So I'd love you to think about that while I make this point. What's going on the planet right now is a maladaptation. Now, a maladaptation is when things change on a human level, on a cultural level, and the human being fails to adapt appropriately. Now, there's a maladaptation because for the first time in history, and that's segueing off what Coach Yvonne has just said, for the first time in history, women are very empowered. Mm. Women have this newfound freedom, and it's exciting. Yes. We get to buy our own beds, we get to call our own shots, we get to make choices, and we're like kids in a candy store. And men are finding themselves in a position throughout history that has never been the case, because if we're talking about not very long ago, my parents, and the time that Coach Yvonne is talking about, which is not quite my parents, but a little bit further back, this conversation would not be happening, because the chances of you being a high earning woman were dismal. This conversation was not even up for discussion. So, what is happening now is change has happened upon humans very quickly. And what is happening is there's a maladaptation, and people like us have been sent to help guide the humans through a new place in life that they've never been, but they have to be willing to be guided. Mm-hmm. Because when we are in unsafe waters, women are afraid that all the freedoms they've gained are going to get snatched away again. Mm-hmm. So that fear is creating we're failing to adapt. Mm-hmm. And men are afraid that they will lose all authority and all power and have lost it and are feeling helpless and angry. Okay. And this, I'm hoping, will usually, adaptations sometimes end up taking for a long time to happen. It might end up being, my grandchildren or great grandchildren who will then find, good equilibrium, because even though we are hypergamous by nature, we have the ability to adapt. Mm-hmm. So we don't have to stay stuck in this kind of, I am hypergamous, I must stay hypergamous, because the human race, the human species will die. If our ancestors had not been able to adapt, there would be no human species. So it is incumbent upon the man and the woman to adapt. And so I believe this is the question that Ebony's asking: what is the adaptation? And what we have to be honest about as leaders in this space is that we don't have a clear blueprint, but we do have some guidance that may perhaps be of service as we navigate this new terrain. And really, we have to understand that in that, as leaders within the space, we are having to battle a lot of heavy emotions. Yeah. And it's very difficult to move things forward when everybody's emotional, when the men are feeling disregarded and the women are feeling like their freedom's about to be taken away. And my question is it okay for us to accept that we don't know, that we want to enjoy our freedoms and keep them, but that to adapt doesn't mean that we don't? I will tell you what I think should be the adaptation, but I'd love to hear from you first, Coach Yvonne, because I keep putting Coach Unika on the spot. So I'd love to hear what.
She said, I want to go.
No, I did not say that.
I know that Coach Yvonne likes to jump off people's thoughts, because that's how she operates best. But I would love to hear your authentic thoughts. And if you don't really have a solution, that's fine too. We don't have to make things up. But I know that you have great wisdom, and I'm sure you will have some input into answering Ebony's question. how do we navigate when we've got all these top tier high earning women and the majority of men are blue collar, earning less and lower status? How do we manage that and work in synergy with our hypergamy, our biological wiring, so that we can, like Coach Yvonne said, Coach Unique said, respect him naturally without having to put in too much work, and be in service to our femininity?
Wow, that's a lot. When you first asked the question and said, think about it, my thoughts went to the masculine man is the hunter. He wants to chase to secure and make sure that he finds, captures, hold on to the very best. And what's very best for one may not be the very best for the other. But then here's the thing. The woman is saying, I am all this and a bag of chips. I can take care of myself. I'm earning almost as much as you. You're either going to have to be a billionaire, or do you get what I mean? Forget it, then it's not going to work. And I do believe that the way in which we are as women and the way we present ourselves as though I don't need you. So then how are you going to chase something that is designed to chase you when you're saying, I don't need you, I can do it for myself? Do I know what the answer is to get women to say, okay, take off the hat, the masculine hat, put on the feminine one, let yourself be caught, give them a chance? For some women, that will work. For others, hell no, I'm not going to. I want to run the show. We were never designed to run. We were designed to help, but not to take the lead. And a lot of us, because of the jobs that we've got, the position that we're in, we don't want to usurp our authority. We want to keep that authority and continue holding on to it. Unfortunately, there is going to come a time when things are going to revert back. So it's a case of, my own thoughts are, look, let us look at self first. Look at what it is I am doing. Look at how I can rein it in, for want of a better word, to not be the one out there that wants to get my purse out first. He's everything that you've asked for in your wants and your desires, and he comes with all the money and with everything else. Let him court you. Let him chase you. Let him do the things that you desire. Let him do the things that you want him to do without having to tell him how you want it done. Let him lead. Take your time and follow behind. If you don't like that, then he's the wrong person for you.
Thank you.
Swipe left and move on.
How about you, Coach Yvonne? Coach Unique, sorry.
I love Coach Yvonne's answer, and I'd love to add to that, because I think the new space that we find ourselves in is new to our generation. Like, we are the generation that has seen it all. Online dating is a new thing. It hasn't even been a century. It hasn't even been 50 years, right? Like, everything that we're experiencing, the women being able to earn more than men, it's a new thing for all of us. And I think really it now then depends on the men who have done the work. Because a man who has done the work and is doing his bus driver job, he can carry a woman's emotions further, right? Yeah. He can provide for her, not just financially, he can provide for her mentally, physically, and spiritually. Because when we say provision, we're not looking at just the money side of things, right? It helps, it's good to be crying when you've got £1 million than crying when you don't. It's that whole, it's now the nuance of relationships that we can be. And remember, again, before we married for posterity, we married for the future of the children, we married for status. Now we don't have to. You can actually marry for love. You can actually find someone that you think, oh my God, I could talk to you forever and spend the rest of my life with. So it's really now about the way we can help these men and these women is about them understanding that we now need to rework a different way of thinking. We cannot think the same way. Hypergamy now needs to mean something different. Hypergamy now needs to involve provision of mental health, provision of physical health, provision of emotional health, and provision of spiritual health. Hypergamy is no longer just about status anymore. If you are with a man who has done the work, he will understand that it's not just his duty to make sure that you've got food on the table. It's his duty to make sure that he supports you in whatever you're doing, because you will get the Stedmans who have married Oprah. He is not of higher status than her, right? But he understands his role as a man. And I don't know what their dynamics are like, but they've stayed together. I can't speak for them. But we're going to need the kind of men that are now willing to do the work on themselves, to kind of move away from that mindset of I am the head of the household because I earn more money. It now means I am the head of the household because I love my wife in such a way that she flourishes even more. I support her in different ways. And he has to be okay and secure in that, because there's nothing like, and because again, unfortunately, men find their worth in those material things amongst themselves, the friends, amongst the family, he'd have to really work on himself for that not to matter to him anymore. What now matters is he's building legacy and wealth, because what he wants his children to see is a man who loves his woman, a man who is there for his woman, who provides and does it with confidence and makes the decisions in the households and still leads in that way. So my thing is, say if Ebony was here, it would be like, look, again, I love saying what I love who you love, but also understand why you love them, understand why you want to build with them, understand where you are going together. So it's really more conversations have to be had. And I think we're in that phase where we have to be open to more conversations. Even in the dating phase, you have, like, when you move from just dating because I want to get married to intuitive dating, to purpose dating, to legacy dating, you're moving from I just want to secure someone who has 3-bed house or 4 or 5 or more so that me and my daughter can live comfortably. It becomes more than that. If you're not, because we now have to move from how they dated in the 50s. And these are the conversations that we have to have. And we can't come at it with opinions and judgments. We have to come at it with an open mind. Like how polygamy back in the day was okay, but obviously now it's not. We have to always come at it with a curious mind and an open mind. So I guess what I'm saying is conversations have to be had. We have to really look at it, because from the comments that I'm reading, it was saying, I think there was someone said that Ebony's mother was a bus driver or father was a bus driver. Maybe she's experience of that and seeing how the household was built up under that context. So her answer is no. And again, some are saying Ianda herself dated a bus driver. So it's like, it's deeper conversations that have to be had. It's nothing on the surface anymore, because back then we were marrying for posterity. We were marrying for the physical outlook, the status. If you were being matchmaked in India or Zimbabwe, where I come from, in Ndebele culture, back in the day, you would be match-made. A grown man would come to your village. He's got so many cows. I want that woman. And you would be betrothed to him. Before you even know it, you're married off to that man, because he came with status, because we were marrying based on the physical, what we saw. You could have been beaten up in the home, had no rights, but we're not doing that anymore. So the language has to now change, and we're transitioning. Culture is transitioning. We are transitioning as a people. So we have to now develop new language for what we're doing, for the transitioning that is going on.
Absolutely. Love that from both of you. I absolutely believe that. First, let's embrace the mindset of fluidity and openness of heart, understanding that we are still working with some rigid psychological structures, and how can we dress them differently, and how can we redefine them. And I genuinely feel that we are in a day and age where we're having to really redefine things like, what is it to be a woman? What is it to be a man, on so many levels that I will not go into. And it's a good question to ask, because when a woman wasn't just the looked after, 10th child or 7th child in the home, and that was womanhood. Dependency was womanhood. And when, being the hunter was manhood, and because Matt, I've got a video on this channel. It's called, understanding your sacred, your sacred womanhood and your divine femininity. They're not actually the same thing, but womanhood and femininity flow so well together, so much so that you thrive as a woman. And you can go and watch that video. I think we have to go down to some really important things that we do here in the Blackstone Relationship Academy is really look at our core needs. I think the modern woman, the successful woman, has never really done some work on her core needs. When you become successful, there's pressure. I've been on my Black Swan Relationship Academy, and I've had some women comment and say, well, as a feminist, you should be saying this. And she's assumed that because of my status, in the world or whatever, that I am naturally a feminist. So, there's pressure for women in power, women with status, women with financial prowess to fall into this. You got to bring a guy who's just as bad as you.
Yeah.
And we haven't actually done the inner work, because that here at the Blackstone Relationship Academy, we work with a lot of high achieving women. And this is the question I always ask them when we start to do the module 1 of the Soulmate Attraction System course. And I really recommend that every human woman, especially if you're a high earning woman, do this, because it's so, so important that you become deeply self-aware. So I'm with a client and, she gives me the usual, I want him to earn 7 figures and And she gives me and she's a very successful woman. She earns multiple 6 figures. She owns a beautiful, massive home. I mean, she's living the life that women had to marry to get and marry well to get. And, she gives me this list, which I did not invalidate. She has absolutely every right to it. But as we began to work together some more, I asked her, okay, why? Why does he have to have it? And she was not really able to give me an answer other than it's almost expected. Like, why shouldn't I? Anyway, we worked through a lot of her core needs. And yes, having a man that had hypergamy did show up. She needed a man who was equal or higher. I didn't debate it with her. But as we worked through the list, of her 5 top core needs, money had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
This woman wanted somebody who she could come home to, give a big bear hug. She had a need for deep intimacy. She had a need to have fun and travel and be adventurous and see the world. She spent so much of her life working that she wanted somebody to have fun with. She wanted a great sex life. She wanted all the things that money can't buy.
Yeah. So
I said to her, if these are your 5 top core needs, we have other needs. We do. And in the soulmate, we talk through core needs, we talk through non-negotiables, we talk through desires. I was like, how about we put the money 6-7 figure thing in the desires? And I'm going to talk about it in a little bit, about what happens in that desire pile, okay? But I haven't, in the many, many years and the thousands of women I've worked with, I've actually had one woman who's had that money thing at a core need level. But even after working through to the last module, she comes back and changes that, which tells me something, that we're actually asking for what we don't truly need, but what we're supposed to want. So this is where we go into the ego and the essence. The ego has to show and prove something. I have achieved A, B, C, D, F, G, and it comes with that guy, that height, that money, that right? So that's the ego trying to show and prove. But the essence of the woman, the girl within, the feminine within, wants the strong hands to hold her tight at night. She wants great sex. She wants good loving. Okay. Now, we worked through that, and she became very deeply aware and conscious of her needs, and realized that the world of men she could date opened up massively. All of a sudden, and this happens, is all of a sudden these minute amount of men, I mean, we're talking about 2% of the world's population that earn six figures and above. So we're not talking about a whole heap of options here. Okay. She realized she didn't have to just look at the 2%. Now she could really vet a man based on the what Martin Luther said, the quality of his character, that men would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Now she could actually, choose and select by the content of her character. But the reason I didn't let her totally throw the money thing out the bin is because I understand something even deeper. And this is something that is very specialist, okay? And we won't have time to explore this today. And I said this on the BBC radio, but we didn't have enough time. And this is really key for the modern woman. I definitely believe this. And the reason I do is because when my clients and our clients get this, they actually end up getting a man who is affluent.
Yeah.
Right. So we open our energy out to realize that my core needs, what I really want is emotional, spiritual stuff. Right. But because, we don't say, no, you can't have that. Right. The next piece is energy.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I've done a whole course. We've got a whole course here at the Blackstone Relationship Academy. I think it's like 20 videos of in-depth understanding of energy mastery. And it's really sad because that course does not get enrolled in much. But I genuinely believe that should be the first course after the Soulmate Attraction System course that every woman should do. Because we have to first understand that we're not humans with jobs and things. We are spiritual entities and beings.
Yeah.
And what we have come to know and feel creates our vibration. Okay, so somebody here said, a bus driver won't be intellectually, on the same frequency. Somebody made a point here in the comments when I was reading, and I want to just deepen that a little bit so it's not so shallow. All right. So when we're talking about intellect, it's not about academia.
Yeah.
I know a lot of academics that are stupid. I mean, they're ridiculously stupid. I sit and I think, how do you have a PhD? You are idiotic. Right. And the reason for it is because they have just taken their mind and focused on one subject matter for a long period of time, specialized in that. Yeah. And that speaks to the ability to focus, to grab in information and to understand a certain thing, a particular subject. But it doesn't speak to an intellect. It doesn't speak to the intellect of a human. The intellect of a human is way broader than academics. I mean, academics are a fraction of what makes the intellectual being of a person. And you can talk to a Rastafari in Jamaica. Everybody knows I've got a love affair with Jamaica, but you can speak to a Rasta in Jamaica who's never been to school, and you can be there for 10 hours because his intellect is expanded beyond his ability to his depth and his fortitude. So again, women want somebody they can learn from. Does it have to be rocket science? I learned from you. Does it have to be banking? I learned from you. Does it have to be psychology? What if I can learn something about the earth? What if I can learn something about energy? What if I can learn something about God? What if I can learn something that blows my mind, where I can sit at your feet and you can overwhelm me with your intellect, right? So this is delving into the area of energetics.
Yeah.
The reason why these women end up getting a man who is affluent and on their level is because when you tap into energetics, into spirituality, for those of you who get upset with the word energetics, into spirituality, and you hone into the true essence of who you are, which is why dating without spirituality is a disaster. And unless you tap into your spirit man or your energy, and begin to understand that you can use energy to vibrate at a frequency where your partner vibrates as well. Okay, so at this point, we're going way deeper. And I truly believe that we're entering into the era, like I said to the radio BBC host, that we are actually entering into the era where energetics are going to matter more than anything else. Which leads me to answer the question that Iyanla asked Ebony. I don't care what a man does for a living. I personally, Mama Swan, do not care. I have provided status, and status for me is redefined by can I show off about the quality of my relationship?
Yeah.
When we're at a wedding together and you see my man serving and he's like, baby, would you like me to get you a drink? And you can just see that this man adores her. That for me is status. That's like, I'm a loved up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I can stay up all night, and Coach Yvonne knows this, and you two know this, if I can stay up all night and talk to my man, it's heaven.
It feeds you.
It's yum, 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 yum. I'm going to respect that man.
Yeah.
Which leads us to the next thing. I would happily be with a starving artist if he could meet the needs of my soul and love me and adore me the way I feel I deserve to be loved and adored.
Yeah.
The problem is, which a lot of modern women are facing, and I've seen this in the comments, because I have attempted it. I really have attempted it. Is that the men also have to level up, like Coach Yvonne was saying. Because at every juncture that I've attempted to be in a relationship with a man who met my emotional, spiritual needs, I ended up on the roadside, beaten, bruised, battered, and kicked like a dog, right? Because
spiritually, not physically.
Not physically, not physically, but emotionally battered, you know,
and mentally drained.
I drained, emotionally battered. I could, at first it didn't matter because the energetics were right. And then it started to matter. It started to matter. And then you can't say anything. You can't have a contribution because you're just trying to one-upmanship me. You can't disagree with anything because you successful women think. You can't speak a word. And then when you don't speak a word, you become the person that I beat down spiritually and emotionally until you have no word. And I get jealous and I compete and I become a blocker and I've got a problem. I become insanely jealous. I mean, you name it. I mean, so it then happens that women are left in a bit of a between and betwixt. Because even if I am open, as I genuinely am, where is that man who is, and this is where Iyanla said something and everybody I felt missed it. She said, maybe not everybody, but most people missed it. She said, if he loves driving the bus, I would be with a starving artist if he loved his art. And he didn't want to be like me. He didn't want to be better than me. He didn't want to make more money than me. He just wanted to love me. He wanted to rub my feet. He wanted to bring me a cup of coffee while I work with my clients. He wanted to rub my back after I'm done. He wanted to cuddle me and hold me tight. He just wanted to love me. But it's very rare to find that because they begin to compete. They begin to compare. And you become the lesser man. And women who are empowered, if they're really honest with themselves, desperately need that emotional man. Desperately need them because we're in masculine energy 90% of the time. So we desperately want a guy who can just take charge emotionally, who can take charge of the home and the energy of the home. And often that is a guy who's not necessarily out there making millions. Okay, because that guy is going to be busy flying here, there, and everywhere. He's going to have so much going on that sometimes he doesn't have as much time that he can give to women. So it's really about us as a human race, understanding that the adaptation has to happen for both men and women. And it can happen if we don't get crazy and emotional and angry. Okay, if men say to themselves, look, I desire to be a provider, but I will honor and love and cherish a woman who provides more than me, and what I have to provide, I'm going to provide 100%. I will give her 100% of what I actually do have to provide, but I'm going to provide more. I'm going to define myself as a provider of emotional love and spiritual direction and, all of these things. If we can have men that will ascend to that plane, I believe that in the next few years, you are going to find some really amazing couplings. And then you're going to find the sort of couplings that look like the reverse of what the Harvard study said in 2000 and in the 90s. Because now we have adapted, and a woman can sit in her feminine because she's loved on.
Yeah.
So well, because women flourish in their feminine when they're loved. And many women, and this is not to say that a man who's successful is incapable of it, but we're saying that the reality is the percentage of men who can provide for a lot of women at the level that they're at is just the numbers are just not there. So if we insist on not adapting, we're going to have a lot of spinsters.
Yeah.
And a lot of men who are not married too. And I actually see a lot of lonely men and a lot of lonely women before the adaptation happens. So yes, I believe that we're going to have to look into the energetics, and we're going to have to do some serious self-awareness work. And I mean, look, if at the end of it, you still feel like, look, he's got to have money and that's fine. But know that you deserve it, you should have it, and you may not. And that's fine too. Right? As long as you're okay with just chances of me getting it are really low, but I really want it and I'm not compromising, that could happen for you too. And I'm not saying that I'm out here looking for broke, busted, and disgusted, starving artists. Don't get it twisted. I would really rather be with somebody who can be all things, but I'm wise enough to know that I get 51% of what I want in a relationship, and I choose the 51% that feeds my soul.
I love that. Actually, I remember something that we once spoke about how there's a culture of trying to drag men into things that they don't want to be in anymore. And it's like nowadays, yes, men are looking for more as well, because the conversations that we're now privy to, if you kind of watch the reels that we're watching, it's like men also are yearning for women who will support them, women who will be feminine, but then again, it's that narrative of we're trying to do this with an old model. We're trying to do this with the mindset of the 50s, 60s, 70s. We're trying to do it. It's only fair that right now, as women, as the culture changes, we need to start accepting men for where they are and be okay with it. Because the minute we start to accept them for where they are, like, look, yes, a bus driver can approach me. And just to kind of go back to my saying no, it's not that I won't date them. I will date them and find out what you're about, but I will not have a relationship with. That's a different thing, right? So I'm going back to that whole thing of, I needed in that moment to understand the mindset of that guy. And it wasn't the mindset that I wanted to get into a relationship with. And which is what we have to own, that I don't want to drag someone. Yes, I want a relationship, but I'm not going to drag anyone kicking and screaming into it because you are providing for me more than I can provide for myself. No one is going to drag anyone kicking and screaming anymore. We want things that are mutually beneficial. I want you to want the relationship as much as I want it. And I think, dare I say, that is the only time I want us to be equal. I want us to have the same mindset of where this thing is going, because I'll never be equal to a man will never be equal to me. And I don't want equality. I want us to still maintain our space and our roles within the roles that we choose. And I want it to be okay. Because yes, there's part of me that also still wants, someone I can present to my dad, because my dad is going to ask me, okay, what does he earn? What does he do for a living? But I'm grown up enough to explain to my dad and say, no, look, Dad, this is the situation. I like him. This is where we're going with this. And he honors me. And then the conversation then changes to my dad asking me, does he love you? Does he honor you? Does he cherish you? And that's a different conversation altogether. So I think it reminded me of the conversation where I think we're saying like how we can love all these men, these starving artists, but we can't drag them into the spaces that we're in. If his mindset is not ready to go with you, we have to walk away. If the bus driver's mindset is not ready to go with you, we have to walk away. If he is, happy days. We're all going to be bus driving on the merry-go-round. And what's that necessary rhyme? what does that sound? Something in the bus. No, it's not. It's the merry-go-round.
The wheels on the bus
Go round and round. That's the one.
Yeah, you be the girl in the back seat doing your entrepreneurship, doing your vibes.
The keys on the pad go round.
You know, I actually dated a guy. I mean, I've dated, and when I say date, I mean I've been on many dates.
Dates. I think we actually have to define date every time we come on here. Yes, dating is some people vetting a man and actually having conversation.
Exactly, vetting and selecting and going on dates. And I went on a date with carpenters, plumbers, because like I said, I'm very I'm very spiritual, and so I navigate the world through that part of me more than the external part of me. So I did date, but naturally men who are wealthy are the ones that approach me. So for me to date a guy who is just, you know, your blue collar guy, usually I have to kind of really, really signal him. Otherwise, normally he won't approach me. It's usually the wealthier guys who naturally feel they can talk to me. So anyway, I dated that guy, and he came with his little white van. And, you know, his worker van and all the tools and equipment in the back, you know, and he comes to pick me up on a date. And here I am in my heels and this like really slinky dress. And I had a blast. I was like, you know, and he was really shocked that I thought it was the best ride ever. I thought it was really cool. And I dated a guy who was a roofer. And, you know, he was interesting because he came to pick me up in a luxury car. Right? And he took me to a beautiful restaurant, and he was actually really financially well off. Right. So again, to the point that Coach Yvonne was making in the beginning, you just never know. So I would say, like we've all agreed, I believe, let's have a little bit of a first date. Let's do some vetting and selecting. But before we do that, let's get in touch with ourselves. Let's really go and burrow down to our core needs and really say to ourselves, look, you know, if I need stuff to feel cherished and loved, then you have every right to it. And you should have it because it is your feminine right to have whatever you want to have, and be who you want to be, and to change your mind at any point along the way. And I reserve the right to change my mind. You know, ask me again in 5 years' time and I'll be like, no, unless he's a billionaire, I'm not interested. Right? We reserve the right to change our minds. Any final thoughts, Coach Yvonne?
My final thought is, I love what both yourself and Coach Unique have just said, that there's one very important element here. The only way you're going to know what it is you want is when you've done the work on yourself to know what you want and what you want beyond a shadow of a doubt. Because I believe in my heart, if you sit a room full of women down and you say to them, what do you truly want? If there's 100 women in the room, maybe 2 know. Everybody else, it's just, you know, if somebody over there says, I want a man who's tall. Yeah, I want a tall one. we genuinely, you know, and then it really does become whatever somebody's, that sounds good, I'll go with that as well. That sounds, but we genuinely don't know what it is that we want. Sometimes life has really done us, and you know, I wanted this, I wanted a tall one, he was tall but he did this, then I decided I'm going to go for the short one, yes, but he did this. And what we tend to do is we go from relationship to relationship, battered and bruised, and we don't do anything to get our minds, our bodies, our mental health, our spiritual health, and everything, our energy, everything about us right before we then go on to the next. I think sometimes as women, what we need to do is to really stop and take a look inside. And when we see what we see inside, and if you're looking inside of you and you don't like what you see, that's when you pick up the phone. That's when you go online and you go into Black Swan Relationship Academy and you look and you make the click, soulmate, that's me, let me do it. Or emotional mastery, let me do it. Feminine mastery, let me do it. Breakup clinic, let me do it. Whatever it is that's there, I don't love me self-care course, it's there, let me do it, because all the courses are there to help you, to put you back together again. And then when you have done that and somebody says, what do you want? Then you know you're not just listening to something that your girlfriend said yesterday or 3 weeks ago. You want what you want, because it's what's not just going to feed your soul, but it's going to feed your household. It's going to have your household as something that is going to be happy. When the male and the female in the home are happy, it's a happy home. Everybody can thrive and strive and grow from that. And when you do that, then you have well-adjusted children coming behind you. When you don't do that, then everything goes helter-skelter. So before you do anything else, to make up your mind to say, I want this, I don't want that, look inside. What is it that you truly need fixing before you're asking for that?
100%. I love it. And that's why we need to embrace an education culture, because education will help us adapt better when we actually know what's going on, scientifically, emotionally within us, and know ourselves better. I hope that today's show has really helped us maybe question, maybe look deeply into it. I know that the subject and the comments under that particular interview, there are a lot of socio-political issues going on, and the feeling that, Black women are always expected to date down. Love to have got into that, because I'm not quite sure how true that is. Definitely from a European perspective, I find that English women that I can definitely speak for will happily marry a bus driver, even though she's, in the corporate world. And I'm talking about a white English woman would happily do it and tend to. There was a kind of like an idol here many years ago with a bin collector guy, and he won it. And I remember sitting with whoever I was with, and I was like, you see, only a white woman would have married him as a bin collector, because there's no Black woman he was going to say, I collect bins, and she was going to be about it. But I find that, English white women, for whatever reasons, and I'm not going to get into the politics of it, are quite happy to marry a man regardless of what he does. I'm not sure what that looks like in the States, but I definitely know that here it wouldn't be necessarily a matter of it being asked of Black women to lower their standards. But I understand that there's some political conversations happening on the other side of the pond. But that's something that would have been interesting to explore. There were many other things and a lot of pain going on in America right now, to be honest. A lot of pain between men and women. It's sort of leaking into Britain, and it's leaking into Europe. I kind of feel its impact, but we're not quite full on there yet. I think it's just Britishness and our unwillingness to have full on angry conversations in the public. However, I do want to be empathetic to the struggles of our American swans. And, I hope that this episode helped you to perhaps reflect on it differently, think about it a little bit differently, and want what you want, like what you like, need what you need, and reach out and become part of the Black Swan Relationship Academy universe. We've got the app, download it, do what Coach Yvonne said, go and get yourself some courses, get educated, stop being ignorant. And like Coach Unique said, let's keep growing. Let's keep expanding ourselves. And we will see you on our next show. I don't think we've got any questions. We did have one, but I think it's going to take it away from the topic we're on. But we could probably do a reel to answer that. So make sure you join us on Instagram for that. And bravo, great work. Thank you. And we love you so much, Black Swans. In the meantime, take care of you. Bye from us and from London. Oh, Hertfordshire and London.
Bye. It's all London. It's called London. No one is asking where.